are countless mysteries of life, but one that many of us think about daily is the idea of happiness. What will make us truly happy, and how do we get there? Dr. Greg Hammer believes that our happiness is directly correlated with our health.
I think that unless we take care of our bodies, we will be very distracted. So if we've put on weight, for example, that is unwanted, or we're not exercising and we feel really out of shape, which may or may not include gaining weight. If we're not sleeping well and we're fatigued, if we're not eating well, we don't really feel at our best. And all of those physical experiences translate into distraction. And when we're distracted by our physical unhealth, it's difficult to be centered and on track to be well mentally and spiritually.
Hammer is a professor of anesthesiology, perioperative and pain medicine, and of pediatrics at Stanford University. He's also the author of Gain Without Pain, the Happiness Handbook for Healthcare Professionals. Hammer believes that we have to be purposeful about attaining a healthy, happy life.
And there are lots of reasons we need to have intention or purposefulness. And they include that our brains are wired in ways that apparently veil our happiness. And the good news is our brains have this magical quality called neuroplasticity. So we can rewire our brains.
Hammer focuses on what he calls the tripod of health, which includes sleep, exercise, and nutrition. Though you may have separate goals for each one, all three are deeply intertwined with each other.
You know, we don't get enough sleep. We're sleepy. We tend to be too tired to exercise. Exercise actually helps us sleep better. So that degrades our sleep, not getting the exercise because we're too tired to exercise. And then we tend to, be sleepy and reach for sugary and fatty so-called comfort foods. And so our diet is degraded as well.
Much of our day depends on a good night's rest. The Sleep Foundation reports that adults need at least 7 hours of sleep each night. However, that's not realistic for many people. The CDC shows that more than 1/3 of adults don't get enough sleep on a regular basis. And though a lot of us assume we can catch up with a nap during the day, Hammer says that strategy will most likely backfire. As we go through our normal routine during the day, we build up a sleep deficit, which helps us go to bed faster and sleep more soundly at night.
So let's say we want to sleep from 11 in the evening to 7 in the morning. If we take a nap for an hour and a half or 2 hours during the afternoon, our sleep deficit by 11 o'clock will not be as great. And so we may find it more difficult to fall asleep at 11 o'clock. And then we start to erode the pearl of sleep hygiene, which has to do with going to bed and waking up at about the same time every day, even on the weekend.
Hammer says if we don't set a goal and make sleep a priority, we'll fall back into bad habits. This will ultimately deteriorate our quality of sleep, leaving us more tired and groggy during the day, an issue not even caffeine can fix.
Many people don't know that caffeine, which is the ingredient in coffee that revs us up, that sort of resuscitates us after lunch, has a relatively long half-life. So what does that mean? That means when you have a cup of coffee at 1 o'clock, and let's say it has 140 milligrams of caffeine in it, you have that 140 milligrams of caffeine at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The 6-hour half-life means that 6 hours later at 7 o'clock p.m., it's as though you had a half a cup of coffee.
Then 6 hours later at 1 in the morning, your body will still have a quarter of a cup of coffee in its system.
Well, I don't know about you, but for me, that half cup at 7 o'clock p.m. and quarter of a cup at 1 o'clock in the morning would kill my sleep.
Our brains need the rest to be able to fully function during the day. Without the proper amount of sleep, we can have brain fog and memory trouble. And a consistent lack of sleep is linked to chronic health problems such as heart disease, depression, and obesity. Hammer says it's okay to take a sleeping pill every now and again if it's necessary, like to treat jet lag, but consistent long-term use can be harmful to your health.
If you're somebody who is kept awake because you're making lists of all the things you have to do the next day, get up and write them down or put them in your phone, in your calendar, and then turn your phone off.
While these tips seem simple, it takes a conscious effort to stick with them to be able to see and feel the results. This discipline extends into our diets too. Oftentimes, the cheapest and quickest meal isn't the healthiest option. Meal prepping your food can ensure that you're eating a balanced diet full of whole foods.
Obviously, the fresher, the better. Cut down on processed foods that come in boxes and cans. More of a plant-based diet, a balance of carbohydrates and fats, preferably healthier unsaturated fats, lots of colors, fruits and vegetables, and avoiding processed foods, and a lot of sugar, of course.
And though it can be hard to always stick to a healthy diet, Hammer says if you only focus on one thing, start with cutting out sugar.
And it's not just glucose, which is the common form of table sugar. Look for other words that end in OSE, like dextrose, maltose, corn syrup. So that's something that I would definitely avoid. I think sucrose is probably less unhealthy than corn syrup. So if the top 3 ingredients include any of those sugar or sugar-like substances, I would definitely avoid them and avoid them altogether if possible.
If you're worried about the shelf life of your fresh produce, Hammer says frozen fruits and veggies are a great option. They offer a quick, easy, and healthy solution that gives you more time to get in your activity for the day. Healthy food is fueling your body to perform at its best. And as Hammer mentioned earlier, using up some of that energy will help you get a good night's rest.
We just don't get as much exercise. We tend to be indoors more and sitting down and, relatively stationary. So getting up and walking around the block a few times, if it's raining lightly, put on a rain jacket, take an umbrella, but some is better than none. So I would say get up from your chair relatively regularly and frequently.
Meaning that your activity doesn't have to fit inside one long block of time. Even taking small breaks throughout the day will add up. The CDC recommends adults get 150 minutes of moderate physical activity each week. It may sound daunting, but it's just 30 minutes a day for 5 days. Hammer says the easiest way to be consistent is to build a habit.
There are patterns of wired neuronal activity in our brains that become more and more entrenched the more we practice them, right? And so in some cases, those are what we call bad habits, right? We have dinner, and then as a habit, we want something sweet, right? So that gets triggered by having dinner. Then we start to have thoughts, which again is neurologic activity, nerves communicating with other nerves in a pattern that's established, i.e. a habit. We have a habit of wanting dessert after dinner.
The good news is our brains are extremely flexible, which means that we can rewire our thinking to form better habits that are good for our health.
It's a little bit difficult at first. That's why it takes a plan. It takes intention. But we can rewire our brains so that we're not automatically thinking of having something sugary and fatty after we've had our dinner. So this stuff is all, it's fun. There are challenges which can be positive. And, it's fun to actually get going on rewiring our brains for the better.
You can find out more about Dr. Greg Hammer and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Nancy Benson. Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
Once we apply some of these methods to very large data sets, we may be able to more easily identify things that we should have known beforehand.
How AI can help researchers think outside of the box.
Then, are you worried about your newborn's flat head?
Some parents are very traumatized by this, and this is a big problem for them. Other parents are very casual about it and don't feel it's a problem at all.
All that and more on Radio Health Journal. I'm Elizabeth Westfield, host of Radio Health Journal. If you enjoy listening to Radio Health Journal, you'll also like our sister show, Viewpoints, which covers a wide array of topics from education to history to the environment. Here's a preview of what they're covering this week on Viewpoints.
In the last 2 decades, this century, there has been virtually no change in the gender wage gap.
Why do women, on average, still make 20% less than men? Then,
they revealed to me that my father had not been my biological father, which is something that I had never remotely thought, known, entertained.
The hidden secrets uncovered from an at-home DNA test. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
Listen to Viewpoints on your favorite radio station, iTunes, and Stitcher.
And that's Radio Health Journal for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more. And check Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify for a library of past programs. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and information about our guests at radiohealthjournal.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Radio Health Journal.